Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Tennille Talks Pain. In last episode, I started to delve into why the brain creates pain and other physical and psychological conditions in the body. I also started to go into some of the core issues related to people who get pain and other medical conditions. In today's episode, I want to ask the question of how do you know if your medical condition is being generated from the mind, which can often be referred to as mind-body syndrome. I also want to go into some of my own personal experiences around this question. There are many ways to tell if you have mind-body syndrome. Many of these are in Dr. Howard Schupner's book called Unlearn Your Pain. The more of these you've had during your lifetime, the more likely it is that you have mind-body syndrome. The following symptoms are functional symptoms, which means that they do not fit with and cannot be explained by known structural conditions. So 1, symptoms often occur with no injury upon waking in the morning or during a time of high stress. I can definitely relate to this. I know that when my neck was progressively getting worse, I was under a lot of stress at the time, and this would have definitely perpetuated the problem. I also remember that I used to get, and still get, random pains around my body that mimic what an actual injury feels like, but I would have literally done nothing. It's also interesting when I consider that even this year, when I would get out of bed in the mornings, I would get excruciating pain in my toe, and it would last a few minutes and then it would just suddenly disappear. And this lasted for many months, and after a while I decided to get some scans to just check that it was okay. And the scans came back normal, and as soon as I accepted that everything was fine, the pain just suddenly disappeared. 2, symptoms persist after an injury has healed. All injuries heal and scars do not cause pain. Our bodies have an amazing ability to heal. Take for instance the femur, the largest bone in the body. If you break it, it usually takes around about 6 weeks for it to fully heal itself. By the time an injury gets categorized as chronic, after 3 months, it's deemed to have well and truly healed during that time by health professionals. There's no longer any damage, yet the pain persists because it's a learnt response. 3, symptoms are in a distribution pattern that is symmetric in the body. This rarely occurs with structural pain. I remember I used to get this pain in my ankles, this sharp pain, in the exact same spot on both sides. And I used to think that maybe it was some nerve compression going on with my spine, but medically that didn't add up. I do recall that I used to sort of worry about my ankles because I had these little protrusions, and the physio told me it was just blood vessels that popped out. I remember I used to worry about them and think something might be wrong, and sure enough, that's the same spot that the pain chose to spring up. If you have any doubts in your body or any vulnerabilities, you can be pretty sure that that's where the pain will choose to strike. 4, symptoms spread over time to different areas of the body. I know mine started with back pain, and then I started getting leg pain. I also developed stomach pain, nausea, numbness, heat, and burning that would spread to different areas of my body. I also started getting all sorts of random pains popping up all over the place. 5, symptoms radiate down a whole leg or arm. This is unlike a nerve pain that would only affect the part of the arm or leg where that nerve is located. 6, symptoms that occur in many different body parts at the same time. I remember one day counting all the different areas in my body that were hurting in that moment, and I counted at least 16 spots. 7, symptoms that have the quality of tingling, electric, burning, numb, hot or cold. These are commonly MBS, especially when there is no evidence for actual nerve damage. As I said, I definitely recall all of these. The following list is considered under the category of inconsistent, meaning that the symptoms vary in ways that a structural condition would not. 1, symptoms shift from one location in the body to another, either within hours, days, or weeks at a time. 2, symptoms are more or less intense depending on the time of day, or occur first thing in the morning or in the middle of the night. This is due to subconscious brain activity. 3, symptoms occur after but not during activity or exercise. A structural issue hurts when used. I remember this year when I was playing AFL, I was getting excruciating pain in my toe, but it usually wouldn't hurt during training or during a game, just usually after or in the mornings. But this doesn't add up because a structural injury hurts when used. 4, symptoms occur when one thinks about them or when someone asks about it. I have a friend who used to have chronic pain, but doesn't have chronic pain anymore. However, whenever we used to talk about it, suddenly the pain would pop up for her. 5, Symptoms occur when stress is increased or one thinks about stressful situations. 6. Symptoms are minimal or non-existent when engaged in joyful or distracting activities, such as when on vacation or when not thinking about the symptoms. 7. Symptoms are minimal or non-existent after some kind of therapy, such as massage, chiropractic, Reiki, acupuncture, a herbal or vitamin supplement. Anything that calms a danger signal will tend to decrease symptoms. The following symptoms are triggered symptoms, which means they are symptoms that are brought on by stimuli that would not actually cause the symptom physically. 1. Symptoms are triggered by things that are not related to the actual symptom, such as foods, smells, sounds, light, computer screens, changes in the weather, temperature, or specific movements. I know it's a common misconception, for example, when people say, coffee gives me migraines. What's actually going on is that someone's had a migraine at the same time that they've had coffee, and therefore the brain has built that association. So now every time they have coffee, bam, migraine. Another example could be bending over. Someone goes to bend over, and at the same time they happen to have back pain, and therefore that association's been built. So every time they bend over, they get back pain. 2. Symptoms are triggered by anticipation of stress, such as prior to school, work, a doctor's visit, social or family gathering, or during those activities. 3. Symptoms are triggered by light touch or innocuous stimuli such as the wind or cold. Most people with mind-body syndrome have several of these features that make it easy to rule in the condition. Even if only one of the characteristics is present, that's enough to rule in the diagnosis of mind-body syndrome. It's very common for MBS symptoms to begin during childhood or adolescence. It might start with things like headaches, stomach aches, dizziness, growing pains, anxiety or fatigue, and other symptoms, and later in life develop into things like back pain, neck pain, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, and other symptoms. Knowledge is definitely power when it comes to mind-body syndrome. For most people, just knowing this kind of information that I've been sharing today and in past episodes is enough for them to get better. So often knowledge is enough when it comes to mind-body syndrome. Sometimes just knowing calms the mind, which calms the symptoms. Sometimes, for people like me, knowing is not quite enough and we need a little bit extra help. And what that looks like, I'm going to talk about in future episodes. In today's episode, I wanted to ask the question of, how do you know if your medical condition is being generated from the mind, or what can be referred to as mind-body syndrome? I also wanted to bring in some of my own personal experiences around this question. So I'm on a huge healing journey at the moment, and while I continue to have pain and other symptoms, I'm learning so much every day, and I want to continue to learn and share my story with you, and information that I've found useful and helpful along the way. Unfortunately, sharing all this does take time, but I am definitely committed to sharing this information and this story with you. I thank you for listening and for your patience with sharing this story, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Stay tuned for next episode. Feel free to follow me on Instagram and Facebook under Tennille Talks Pain. Thanks guys, see you later.